great. Does anybody have any other questions that they want to ask Craig? I mean, he sort of gave you let you drink from the fire hose. And there's a lot to tell you in a very short period of time. I know a lot of you are familiar with aspects of this, maybe some things more than others. So comments or questions?
I said two small things. Ex-Im Bank reauthorization. How does that, this is by my lack of knowledge specifically, how does that affect the nuclear industry?
So I would say the nuclear industry is one of the prime beneficiaries of the Ex-Im program. American industry is competing with competitors all over the world that have some kind of export financing arrangement guaranteed by the government. I think that to not reauthorize the Ex-Im Bank or to limit it in some way will hurt the nuclear industry, hurt our ability to export goods to other countries that are building nuclear plants, and frankly, there is a security dimension to this because the old saw in Washington is if you're not at the table, you're on the menu, and we need to be at the table as these plants are being developed around the world. It doesn't mean that we, it's us versus the world because supply chains are internationalized and you see a lot of companies that are, working together across national lines, but we have to be involved, and Ex-Im helps facilitate that.
And if I could add one thing, just a more macro sense, the reauthorization of the Ex-Im Bank also enables other U.S. manufacturing and technological capabilities to be exported through that financing. Solar technology, U.S. homegrown solar technology has benefited from Ex-Im Bank most recently in projects in India, for example, as well as our own airline industry with Boeing. So it's not only about nuclear, but it's also about the broader Made in America best practices, keeping the local industrial manufacturing base strong for good things, both here and overseas.
Yeah. And I want on the clean energy standard that I think you said Illinois was working on. That if you could share that legislation or a bill number or something like that, that'd be great because we actually went through a stakeholder process with some of the other clean energy folks last year. Yeah. And there's actually a bill that the patient had stricken, but because it wasn't ready for prime time yet. So that's something that I know the governor's office is interested in, some kind of clean energy standard, and that there are people in the utility community and in our renewable communities that are having those conversations as well. So we'd love to see how they're kind of...
There is a website set up that runs through that has some fact sheets on the legislation and sort of serves as the communication point for the supporters. So yeah, you can. I mean, if you do Nuclear Illinois in Google, you'll find it. You can also find it through Nuclear Matters as well.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and if you really need that, we can help you get that. I mean, I can ask Greg, and we can ask him to support you in that information.
But that's something that people that are having this conversation would be interested. That if you're not aware of it already, would be interested in seeing how they're navigating some of the issues that.
Well, that's what we're seeing in some of the other states too. What we're discovering, and while he had said that the nuclear in the states A&S Special Committee is going to be focused specifically on the new bill, there is a reality. I hope that we can get our incoming president, Gene, to recognize that we can be a value-added resource to supporting the lawmakers and policymakers about how to maintain the current fleet and what to do with it and how it should be interjected and how you're going to utilize it. Because when you get out and talk to these folks about nuclear science and technology and you talk about the kinds of things they don't think about, because all they usually think about is safety. They don't think about the security aspect, they don't think about the foundation, they don't think about the infrastructure, the tax base, and the jobs, and all the things that actually enhance and improve the overall activity within the state. And when you start showing them these kinds of information, they're like, well, I had no idea. Okay, but now that you do, what are we going to do with it? So don't be shy about asking for this kind of information. We're creating it. I think it's something that you're just going to be one of the many states that this is going to be shared with. Yeah. If I didn't overspeak.
No, I think that's right. And I think the other thing is watch what happens in Illinois. Yeah. Watch what happens, because Illinois is really sort of the crucible for what every other state is going to have to go through to try to get themselves ready for 111D regulations, assuming they don't completely fall apart in the next administration. So this will be a path forward or a model for a state to look at how do we how do we get rid? There's always going to be uncertainty about the rule. 3 years from now, 4 years from now, but I think most people that you talk to about this believe something's coming, and so how do states prepare to value their markets so that the value of clean generation is fully considered in that process? For some, it is, right? But for others, it's not.
Any other questions? Now, this is as long a meeting as we've had since we reformed last year. So I want to offer something. Given the fact that we're going to still remain convened, would you like to take, we have another 20 or 30 minutes, would you like to take a short nature break to facilitate standing up, stretching your leg, going to the men's room, then circle back?
Yes.
Okay. I had a feeling I'd get a few yeses. So with the acceptance, Randy, I'm just going to offer everybody 5 to 8 minutes. But please come back. We should be able to finish sometime shortly after 12. I hope that doesn't impact everybody's schedule. So we're on a still convened, but you may do whatever you need to do. I hope what Craig's presentation did was painted a picture that we're not alone, that irrespective of what we think we're doing in the Commonwealth, and I believe we are, to enhance and improve the application of nuclear science technology for the benefit of humankind and the quality of life and the activities they conduct, that we have to be acknowledging and recognizing that there are things going on in the states that are either nearby or ones that are further away that have an impact on us, and we have an impact on them. Which is really why I added the next thing is, what else can we do to enhance understanding and appreciation of nuclear science technology, not only in the Commonwealth, but also in the rest of the nation, and for that matter, the rest of the globe. And I'm really not looking for an answer now. I have some of my own ideas, and I'd like to a few of you to think about whether or not you'd work with me between now and August to create something that we could bring back for the consideration of the authority, that we could work with also with the consortium as to what are we really looking to do. We shouldn't be meeting every quarter and talking about things and working with the consortium and giving them the tools to be successful only. I believe we have an opportunity here, and we have a responsibility for that matter to our public and our policymakers to help them understand all the benefits of nuclear science technology. And we have a unique entity here that can do that. And it's my hope that it's not outside of the statutes, Randy, for us to do so. The statutes are written a little loosely, and they are, structured in such a way, as I was reading them here just a few weeks ago, thinking, okay, what can we really be? We did what we needed to do last year. We came together. We talked about what we needed to do. We set up the consortium in January of this year, and they've marched off smartly. Okay, where do we go from here? How do we really add value and benefit the Commonwealth and all the citizens thereof, and obviously also the policymakers? So, again, I'll be working on this, so if you're interested in working with me to bring something back to the August meetings, please feel free to get back to me.
I would just add that I think asking for input from the consortium would be a good idea towards that open question. As we've worked through some of the things on the agenda, we might be coming up with, this is something we could pass to you.
Yeah, sure. And if I can go ahead and do that, but anything that comes up, obviously, to come to the authority, it has complete public consumption. What I think came out of this is that there's so much going on, more than we could say here at this particular meeting, because there's so many entities and organizations, you brought up some of them, that are pursuing different technologies, more advanced technologies and activities in different states and whatnot, and in some cases here, that we may or may not be aware of. And I think it's important for us to set up our capability to be aware of all the things that are going on, to the extent practical, in our world, if you will, that impact us, or could impact us. Whether it's an activity related to the pricing mechanisms you're seeing in Illinois, or the activity to them doing the HTGR, going forward with an advanced or fast reactor at Piketon in Ohio. There's so many different things that I want to make sure this group is made aware of, so that we make informed decisions as we move forward as to what's in the best interest of the Commonwealth. Does that sound like a reasonable approach, everybody?
One idea one suggestion is that as you guys go through this, you should, especially on state policy makers, there's an educational side of it, but if you're going to go meet with delegate whoever or senator whoever, you'd have some kind of an ask. And whether it's continue to pay attention to what we're doing or something like that, but think about what you want that ask to be and what kind of the 2 or 3 or 4 points you want them to take away. I mean, I know that we provided everyone with the report last year, which I think gave a baseline of kind of what we're doing and what's going on. But it was a significant document that I'm sure didn't get a ton of eyes put on it all the way through. One of the biggest benefits of what you guys could do is getting out and talking to the legislators or policymakers. But I think that we need to figure out exactly what from that type of a presentation you guys got today, you want them to digest and what you want them to be actionable for them. And that's not a question obviously that needs to be answered today or necessarily on August 20th, but at some point this fall, I think getting out and meeting with legislators one-on-one as you have relationships, I think would be an important thing to do to get them to focus on what we're doing.
Well, he's got a good point, and I was thinking of trying to put down what the ask is. I learned right away when I went to Congress and started interfacing with our Senate and House representatives that invariably, after you're done talking to them, they look at you like, so what do you want to do?
Yeah.
Right? So I learned right away, I'd like you to be smarter than you demonstrate that you are, because you indicate that you have an IQ. That would be the first thing I'd like, sir. Forgive me. So, but I think I've learned to structure it in such a way as that it's a reasonable ask to say about them being engaged or voting on this or be aware of this policy, or and I think that I'm at liberty. I think I've already told you that I am one of the co-chairs of this nuclear in the states, and I've already started talking to governors and their staffs, and it's amazing to find out how much they don't know, and that's to be expected. They don't do this for a living like we do. But I think once they find out, there's a number of things we can ask and say what they should be doing. Okay, with the information we've now armed you with, that you are informed, what now can you do to benefit the activities for the constituency that you serve and you govern? It's the same thing in the House and also in the Senate. As we're pushing forward for things like making our nuclear power plants national assets and other things that I'm pushing for, I'm spending a lot of time. I do have a small company, and it seems to be getting smaller by the day because I'm paying less attention to it than I am to the important matters to me of nuclear science technology and its continuation in this country and in this globe. But it is something that we're having to take the time to go and say. And I think this messaging is important, and it's going to be just as important, if not more so, coming from this authority and from this consortium as it is from any other entity. So while the American Nuclear Society has a role, as does Nuclear Energy Institute, as does this entity, and this one, so does this authority and this consortium. Because you're the first in the country, like you are. And I'm convinced in seeing other governors and their staffs that there's something they're going to want to take on. And they're trying to look at what we're doing, and so they're watching to see what benefit are we adding, what value add, what ask are we making, how are we instituting that, how are our policymakers and lawmakers utilizing the information we provide them to make informed decisions. So hence that's really what the whole reasoning was, to try to put Craig in front of my B part to try to ask you guys about this.
So we're really talking about, single message, many voices. And I think as we ask ourselves, what can we do to enhance the understanding? We should have our singled up message so that whether we're talking, and particularly when we think about the asset inventory, the industry across the state lines up with delegates across the state. I think the asset inventory across the nation lines up with congressmen across the nation. So as we tighten up what that message is and what that ask is and what the expectation is, it should be essentially become a product so that it's a single message, many voices that we're talking, whether it's at the state or at the national level.
Excellent. I'm glad you said it instead of me.
The other thing I would say, just relative to what you mentioned earlier, I mean your part B, is I think about the asset inventory. I don't know that we have sort of categorized areas of research